now. Okay, recording is on. Thanks. Well, welcome everyone on this afternoon. Maybe for you it's morning. Some of us will be afternoon. Welcome to this webinar on how to start and run a data science project with impact. My name is Ronald Buijsse and I will be your host for the next, well, close to 90, 100 minutes to guide you through a lot of experience we got at the JADS Academy of Data Science. First of all, what is the main topic? What are the main topics for this presentation? There are three main topics. One is, what are the right reasons to start with a data science project? We have many lessons learned on that, so that's quite an important one. The second one is, when we have the right reasons to start a project, what are the right methods to execute? And finally, when we have done a nice execution, what is the right way to make sure that we create impact? When you have questions during this webinar, please post it in the chat, and I will try to jump now and then to the chat to answer those questions. And by the way, I will have a few small exercises during this webinar workshop, and I hope that you did receive the forms for that in your email. There are about 4 PowerPoint slides which you can use to answer for yourself a few questions I will ask during the presentation. Okay, what are the topics for today? The topics are a small introduction. Then I will cover the role of data science in problem solving, because data science is one way to solve problems, but it's not the only way. Then I will look into the scope of data science projects. There is a lot of variety. Then we will cover the way of running a data science project. We will look into the results of data science project, and then I will discuss with you the impact, how to make sure that people follow the insights that you discovered. As mentioned, I have a few exercises, but also a few cases to cover all these topics. One moment. Something. Yeah. It's always important to also cover you as a group. So who are you on the other side? I made a small review of the people joining this webinar. 45% is female, 55% is male. So I think it's quite a nice balance. The average age is quite young, much younger than I am, so 31. 35% is students, 65% is professional, and most of the professional titles I've summarized on the right side. So it's really a broad range of specialists, of managers, of commercial people, technical people. And the split of the world is also quite balanced. A bit of Europe, Asia, Africa, the Arab region, and the Americas. So we have a good international public. Of course, all of you have your own reasons to join this webinar, and you all have your own stories, what you have done till now and what you're up to. And in my experience, I've tried to summarize briefly the people I meet during a lot of lectures, where they come from, what they do, and what they are heading for. First of all, we have business managers joining, consultants, project managers, business intelligence specialists, database people, programmers, PhD candidates, students, everybody. And all of those people, they want to learn something about data science, and they can join either a discovery course, which I think is the course today. You can also join a programmer course with Python or R. You can join a data science expert program with everything about machine learning or deep learning or process mining. Or you can do a course on leadership skills to lead a program. Just to be clear, those are the 4 options I recognize most in practice. And of course, you all will have different ways to goals to head for. Maybe you want to become a data engineer, a data analyst, an entrepreneur, data scientist, or a project leader. For today, I think we cover most of these people. You are in the discovery course, and my focus will be on the goals to become a data entrepreneur, data scientist, or the data science project leader. So I will not present the most relevant content for data engineer or data analyst. But however, I think that what I will cover is relevant for everybody, but it's not the deep learning for it. So my focus is on why do data science, how to do it, and how to make sure something it has impact. Maybe briefly my own story. When I studied, there was no data science yet. At least it didn't have that name. It had the name of operations research at that time. And the funny thing is even that when I studied, operations research was declared as dead science, because there were so much difficulties with setting up an operations research project that Mr. Akov, at that time a famous consultant, did while operations research will lead to nothing. So it's quite funny to see that about 35 years later, data science is flourishing as never before. So Mr. Akov maybe have been a good consultant, but he was wrong on this topic. I studied at Tilburg University and also at Eindhoven University. I did management science. And I had a special program at Indiana University for half a year, which was an excellent time to learn how studies are going in the US. After those studies, I joined Philips in the computer division. I was joining the lounge of personal computers. I even met Mr. Bill Gates in those times. And I was working on innovations in banking, electronic banking, and digital dealing rooms. After 10 years, I moved to the media world, where we had e-commerce and digital television. And then again, 10 years later, I joined ORTEC, which stands for Operations Research Technologies. So ORTEC has operations research or data science in its name. And after working there for about 10 years in global marketing programs, I joined the Euronymous Academy of Data Science, which is a cooperation of Tilburg University and Eindhoven University. So in some way, I went back to my roots. And I'm now there working for almost 4 years on educating professionals in data science. Briefly, what is JADS? That's the Euronymous Academy of Data Science. So it's a joint initiative of Tilburg University with a lot of humanity and business, Eindhoven University with a lot of mathematics and technical research, and in the middle we have the Euronymous Academy. So we have students coming in from both Tilburg and Eindhoven, but actually we have students coming in from all over the world. So and we have a master's program and a professional education program. Just to give you a thought, we have about 200 master students. We have about 120 professional students. And we have a great place to meet. Readup, who is the organizer for this event, knows very well this place. It's a monastery in the middle of Den Bosch, in the south of the Netherlands. A great place to be, and a nice college room we have is the chapel. But we can't use it at the moment because of Corona, but hopefully we are back there soon again. Most of you working on data science are very innovative, and I think that will come back in my presentation also. Doing data science is actually doing a lot on innovation, because you want to change habits, you want to change procedures, ways of working, and maybe even products. Just to give you a small view on my innovation stories, as mentioned before, I was part of the PC introductions in the end of the 80s. Electronic banking was quite new. For most of you, that will be quite a surprise, but there was a time then when there was no electronic banking. Digital dealing rooms was a great thing to be part of. And then database-driven publishing. In the past, you had catalog sales. Now that's e-commerce. Then the digital television, digital media time, around 2005, 2010. And then at ORTEC, the major innovations were road and load optimization. Actually, companies like Walmart, General Mills, Coca-Cola, Carrefour in Europe, Albert Heijn in Holland, And those are companies that all introduced road and load building from OTEC in the time when I was working there. Even at JADS, we do a lot of innovation. We have changed the learning, the teaching, and the collaboration in the classroom a lot. Actually, it's not one-way teaching anymore. It's a lot of collaborations, a lot with GitHub, with Gaggle. It's a lot online, and it's a lot of teamwork. Unfortunately, we cannot do that really today, but I will try to present a bit of the atmosphere we have normally at JADS in this lecture. I will take a brief look at the chat. I don't see any messages yet, so I will follow up with the next. So to tackle the first topic is how to start a data science project. So what is the role of data science in solving problems? So first of all, I maybe have to tackle what is data science. And as you all must be aware of that, if you search on data science, you get a lot of nice pictures, a lot of nice infographics, a lot of buzzwords like mathematics, machine learning, deep learning, process mining, whatever. It's all about technology and changing habits. But the real core is not really expressed that well, in my view, because it's a lot about technology, so how it works and what is in it, but it doesn't say what the result of data science is. For example, if you look into Wikipedia, it says data science is extracting knowledge and insights from many structural and unstructured data. Okay, but what does it bring? The other one is data science is a concept to unify statistics, data analysis, machine learning, and domain knowledge. Okay, good. So that is what you put in it, but what comes out of it? It's not in those definitions. Then maybe a better definition is data science is about extracting information based on principal techniques. Okay, or it's an extensive use of data, statistical and quantitative analysis. Again, it says what techniques are in there, but it doesn't say what it brings. So, in my view, the real expression of what data science brings is that it's about finding, checking, and applying insights from data with models to improve decision making. If you find insights and you don't apply them in decision making, you're doing the wrong job, I think. So for me, there is always a connection between finding, checking, and applying insights to improve decision making. So when you do a data science project, you always should consider which decision making am I going to improve? Whose decision making am I going to improve? Is it mine? Is it of another person? Is it of a group? Is it of customers, of suppliers, or whatever? So decision making is really where it should start and where it should end. Another thing maybe which can tease you is why to make the difference between finding, checking, and applying. Well, of course, the most interesting part of data science is to find new insights. You know, that's something we all want to experience, you know, finding something which nobody has ever seen before. But it can also be of great value when you just check a certain insight. For example, if your boss says, well, when the sales is going bad, we will just drop the prices and then we will sell more. Okay, so the insight is drop prices, sell more. Maybe it's good to check that. And that's what you can use data science for. And then the other thing is also applying insights. There can be a lot of insights around in the company. But everybody's talking about these insights, but not too many people are using those insights. So if you want to secure that certain insights are really used, you can use data science to make models, and you can motivate people to use those models so that those insights also are being used. And for example, if you have somebody who's really a smart guy, has a lot of best practices, but is not able to communicate all those best practices to all the employees, you can use data science to embed his thoughts into a system and then use it as a recommender for all the employees. So again, data science has a lot of value in finding, but also in checking and applying insights. Data science is not the only way to solve those issues, because there are many ways to find and solve problems and opportunities. For example, you can find opportunities or insights just based on your habits. You know, that's what you do every day. Or you can find and solve problems by using protocols, like in the health world. And there are a lot of protocols to help people to say, okay, what is your illness and how should it be treated? You can also start a discussion. You can start talking to experts. And what you can do, you can start a data science project. So it's very important to be aware of this, that data science is not the only solution, but yet you also have other ways to solve problems and solve and realize opportunities. And you should be really aware of the point that why have you chosen data science to find and solve a problem, and not a discussion or asking experts or using protocols. So only when the other things don't work, or when you're convinced that data science is going to bring the best way to solve, then you should use data science. And for example, I always make the joke also at home, and don't use a data science project to define what you will have for dinner tonight. Doesn't make sense. It's better to talk, it's better to use your habits, or certain protocols. Always pasta on Monday. That's something you can do, but don't use data science for that. Data science is really welcome when you have at least an opportunity to have data. Then another way to define data science is by explaining the main techniques to be used. And that's quite a difficult thing, because mathematics is for many people not a favorite subject to discuss. But the good news is that, in fact, you only use 3 mathematical techniques. One of them is classification. Classification is the fact that you group certain events in a number of classes, which you have defined before, and that you, for each class, you have defined a best treatment, so that when a new item comes in, you look to which class it belongs, and then you add a certain treatment. A classification is, for example, very well to explain with medical items. If you see somebody coming in who's not walking in a good way, of course, first you ask where is the pain, and then you can make a split between are the muscles a problem, or did he break his leg? And if the muscle is a problem, then he's in class 1, and when the bones are a problem, then it's in class 2. Or maybe there's a third option. Maybe he's hungry or thirsty and can't walk that well anymore. But in this way, you classify the events you see, and you then apply a treatment which is very well for that class. So in such a way, you can really use data science, because you have collected a lot of those issues around people not walking straight, and you have learned what is the best treatment for all those events happening. Now, if you don't know what classes to make, is it a broken leg or a muscle problem, then we call it clustering. That's what we call unsupervised learning, because then you don't know yet how to group all the events which are happening around you, and you just ask the computer, well, try to make groups out of it. So now you see in the picture that there are 5 groups, but maybe you can also make it into 2 groups, that there are 2 clusters. But with clustering, you don't know up front what is on the X or on the Y axis. You don't know. So those two are quite similar, it looks like, but with classification, you know the classes. In clustering, you don't know the classes yet. So for example, with clustering, it can be that when somebody is walking in a bad way and is sweating a lot, maybe then it can be that he's thirsty. And that's the reason why he doesn't walk that way. Or when somebody can't walk at all anymore, and his legs look really wrong, it looks as if there is something broken, then you could put them in a cluster of the broken legs. But then with clustering, most of the time you have more attributes, more features to group people. The third mathematical treatment you can use, technique, is regression. And in fact, regression is just a way to make a line between the y-axis and the x-axis, and to see if there is some way you can make a line out of all the dots. Now, in this picture, of course, it's quite clear that the line is moving along the dots, but not always it is that clear that that is the line. So what you try to do is to minimize the distance between all the dots and the proposed line. And if you have minimized those distances, then you have the best line available. Now it's not a straight line, so the nicest way to have a regression is to have a line like the formula, it's ax plus b, and then you have a straight line from the left corner to the right top corner, but there can be a lot of waves in there. So regression is very helpful, but it's not always valid. So in that case, you may have to fall back on classification or clustering. The fourth way of using mathematics is anomaly detection, so that you really trace the outliers and that you take them out of your group, so that you can make a bit more coherent group of events which you can use to find the best solution. So you can use this detection also for clustering, and you can use it for classification before, so that you have a more coherent group. But again, most of the mathematics used in data science are those three. And again, it is used to find insights. And the insight is then, indeed, if you maybe drop the price, is the sales stronger, more yes or no? Or, for example, if somebody comes in with a certain malfunctioning leg, is then treating this way, is it the best way? So those insights, and what should you do with a certain event, or what connection is there between feature A and B, that is the insights we are all looking for. And one of a very well-known insight we are all looking now for is, of course, what is the best treatment to prevent coronavirus? Is that having a cap? Is it keeping distance? Is it maybe not to talk to anyone at all? And that's one insight we need, how to prevent the illness. The other one is how to prevent that the economy is going down. So there are two insights needed to come to the best solution. And at the moment, I think there are really thousands of people looking for the right insight, collecting data, and finding what is the right balance between taking care of health and taking care of the economy. So if you find that insight, you can become very popular and become very wealthy. But I can assure you that it's not an easy one, not an easy insight to find, especially because the data, the attributes are not really found yet. So maybe it's a small help out about these technologies. If you want to find an answer, yes, no. If you want to find yes, he has a broken leg or not a broken leg, then classification is a good one. If you want to predict a certain value, for example, if the heat goes up, how many people will get ill? That's regression. If you want to group data into similar observations, not based on one axis, that's clustering. And if you want to recommend a certain item, if this happens, please do this, or if that happens, please do that, then you have a recommender system. By the way, a recommender system is based on insights from classification, regression, and clustering. And if you want to find anomalies in the group, that's anomaly detection, so then you can take the species out of it because something strange happened. This is just a small guide to pick the right technology. So what you do really with data science is define a problem, collect relevant data, apply the most relevant data science technique to find the right insights. And then, if you have found the right insights, take new problems, map them on the right insights you found, and then take a solution which is related to that. So in fact, what you do is first create insights, and then apply insights in new practices. And maybe it's good to make a real split between this, because setting up a data science project and finding insights is a very tedious job. It's taking a lot of time. But once you've done that, then you can go to the second round, and then you can start applying data science by finding new events and treating with the right solutions. And you can make also split in groups, to do the first thing, to find the insights and make a model, make recommenders or things like that. That's really a technical job. That's really creative, innovative. The second way, to apply data science in all types of solutions, that is more an operational job. And for example, if you do route planning, you first have to make a model for route planning, and then you can give to a planner who's applying the route planning, maybe each minute or each quarter of an hour. Okay, so data science is both. It's about building models and it's about applying models. You can also picture data science with the application areas, and just to show a few of those application areas, you can see this on the screen. Here the application areas are mapped on situations where the data is already structured, and where the volume and the velocity of data is low or high. And the dark blue area is in fact the area where you see the most data science projects now. Then if the data is less structured and the volume and velocity is going up, then you have a more tedious job to do, because semi-structured data is more difficult to handle. It's more difficult to find insights there. So that's the second wave of data science. And then for the future, we hope that data science also can work with very unstructured data, like blogs, Twitter feeds, Facebook things, call logs, GPS, telematics, Internet of Things, and that's a higher volume, higher velocity, more unstructured, and that data science can also cover there. Because if we can do that in the light blue area, then we will find a lot of insights which can help in making better decisions. So which other methods are competing with data science to solve problems or to develop opportunities? Well, one of them is just the plan, do, check and act cycles, which is used a lot in quality. And so this is not a data science approach, but it's a way to solve problems. The good news, however, is that you can use data science as small pieces in this way of solving, because in the root cause analysis, you can use a bit of data science. And in making a model to implement countermeasures for problems, you can use a bit of data science. For monitoring, you can use a bit of data science to collect data. So data science can be part of these ways of working too. Another solution to solve problems is Lean Six Sigma, and it has about the same methods as data science. It's also about defining the problem, quantifying the problem, identifying the costs, implementing and maintaining. But in Lean Six Sigma, it's not always necessary that you just rely on data. It can also be discussions that feed this process. Another way of working is, for example, the Delphi method, that you have a lot of discussions with people. And the unique thing of the Delphi method is that you can involve different types of participants, decision makers, staff, respondents, and that you do it in an iterative process. Another way of positioning data science is in this graph. I will share this later on. But this picture is a bit, this is a video from Harvard Business Review, and it just explains when a lot is known, when the insights are known, the start data is known, the options are known, then you just can do problem solving in a conventional way. You don't have to find new insights, you don't have to find new quantifications. Now, if the decision outcomes are not that clear yet, and you have some probabilities, some uncertainties and so on, Then you need data science to really quantify your options and also make the whole process more clear. Now, there is also an option that when you don't know the goals yet, you don't know the insights yet, you don't know the starting situations, you don't know certain relationships, that even you cannot use data science because you cannot quantify the problem. In that case, you will use case-based reasoning. That means that you will look for comparable cases, and maybe those are a bit quantified, but not that much, but you are not able to make real models. But in that case, you just use comparable cases to come to a solution. So either you use existing insights and you do what you always did, based on your experience, based on protocols, whatever. Either you use data science to find new insights and apply them, or if you don't have the data and everything is very uncertain and very complex, you just use cases, comparable cases to solve the issue. So in this case, we position data science as the middle solution. It's not that everything is known, and it's not that everything is not known, but at least some things should be known. So there should be something of a goal, there should be some data collection, there should be some insights, then you can use data science. Another way of solving issues is the dialogue decision process. This is coming from the decision quality book, and this shows that you have to make certain steps. So it's not that you just do data science and then everything is solved. No, quite often you first have to recognize the situation. You can use data science for that. You have to assess a certain situation. You can use data science for that. Then you have to approve the frame you have picked about the problem, because you want to have from the whole reality, you want to make a frame which you really can solve. And then you can develop alternatives. For that, you can use data science with simulation, for example. Then you can approve the alternatives. You can evaluate the alternatives. Again, when you have a model, you can do simulation or what-if analysis. That's great. Then you can, based on the results of all those sessions, you can make a decision. You can implement it, maybe with a model included, maybe with a recommender system. Then you can go for it and then see the results. So data science is not just a one-stop effort. It's really a step-by-step approach in which you use data science to make things clear and find insights. And again, you always can combine a bit of Six Sigma, you can combine a bit of the Delphi methods, you can combine other problem-solving methods and use data science as a carrier, as an add-on. Another viewers on this whole way of working with data science is in this other metrics, where you see that in certain problems you can have a lot of complexity on the organization side, on the problem side. It can also be that things are quite simple, then you can do automatic decision making. If it is a bit more complex, you can have some discussions about things. So in this case, you can use data science very well. But when things are very complex, and both on the organization side and on the problem side, then you should use the case-based reasoning part. One of my favorite slides is this one, because if you have done data science to solve major issues, and you come up with certain thoughts, well, we should handle it this way or that way or that way, it can happen that in the boardroom, when you're meeting with your colleagues and with your boss, all of a sudden the boss says, hey guys, I've found the solution, let's do it this way. Then you need to have the guts to come up with your data science insights and say, hey boss, I have something else to share before you decide. Hey, I know that you're very experienced and you have a lot of thoughts and your knowledge is unlimited, but please take into consideration that with data science we have found this and that insight. Quite often people are not much that willing to share those insights with the boss when the boss is really very confident on his own solutions. So it can be that you doubt about your boss, and that your colleagues doubt about your boss, but nobody is speaking up. And so here it says, well, one person says, well, oh boss, you say we should do it that way? Say it ain't so. You have to be kidding. Please forget about it. Heaven forbid. Oh no, it's thousands done already. So please don't do that. But quite often it can be that the whole data science effort ends just before the decision is made. That's a pity. Just please be aware of that, and make sure that you involve your colleagues in your data science project in time, and make sure that you also involve your boss, because it's killing for your data science project when you come up with a not requested advice. If your boss is not aware of the fact that you're doing a data science project, and your colleagues are not aware of that, and you come out with a surprise, hey guys, I found this or that or such or so, well, be prepared that quite often you will be you have to shut up, because people don't like surprises. So to prevent this way of groupthink, involve people in the right way. Of course, another end for data science can be that your boss just says, well, I believe in your data science, but I have strong opinions and I pay your wages. You just do what I say. That can also be the case. It happens a lot. Now, I will introduce quite some familiar concepts to you, but also some new ones. And one new way to position data science is just in a very simple, what I call plus decision model. Because what you do with data science is in fact that you collect goals, what should happen, you collect facts, what is happening, you collect decision rules or insights, you put them in a box, and then you get results. So if you work on a data science project, please keep in mind that you always should take aware, what is our goal, what are the facts, what are our decision rules, make them mix them together, and then see what the results are. And one of the most important areas for data science in this is defining new insights which are translated into decision rules. To make it a bit more complex, you can use data science for defining your goals. You can use it for analyzing all the facts. You can use it for defining rules or insights. You can use it for analyzing results. Now, you can use also data science for analyzing the gap between the facts and the goals. And for example, the goal is to have 0 corona patients. The fact is that there are about millions at the moment. So with data science, you can analyze what is the reasons for the difference. Another thing you can do is that you can analyze the facts related to the rules. For example, you have an insight that you say when you are using 1.5 meters of distance, then there is a drop. If you also use a mouth cap, then there is another drop. If you close the shops or if you close the beaches, then there is another drop. So if you find those, that's also a way to use data science to enrich the rules. You can also use data science for checking the effect of certain rules. So if you stop using 1.5 meters, if you stop using mouth caps, if you just allow all the people on the beaches, you also can analyze them. And of course, the most well-known way of analyzing is using the difference between results and the goals. So why did you not reach your goals, or why did you overreach your goals? And then if you make it even more complete, you have all mathematical toolings to do these analysis. So you see here again, clustering, regression, you see classification, you see optimization, forecasting, recommenders, simulation. So this is a bit what's happening with data science. It's a small core, combine goals, facts, and rules, add analytics to it, or data science, and add all the mathematical stuff to it. Now, the point is simple, that you need data to do data science. In reality, a lot of the stuff will not be quantified. So the goals maybe are not quantified. We want to grow. Yes, how much, when, in which areas. The facts cannot be quantified. Yeah, people are ill, but okay, how much are people ill? And did we measure everything? Maybe the rules are not quantified. For example, the rule of that you should drop the price a bit to increase sales. Okay, but how much is that? How much should you drop the price to have 10% more sales? Maybe the results are not quantified. That's, customers are happy. Okay, how happy? Can you rate it on a scale from 0 to 10? And maybe the decision making is not quantified. It can be that everything is quantified, like in the stock exchange, and there's a lot quantified. In the logistics, there's a lot quantified. But if you apply that as science, please take into mind, how does your situation look like? Is there a lot quantified already, or is it not that much quantified? If you don't have little quantified, you will need other solutions to solve your issues. You can use data science as a reference, but in this case, maybe having good discussions and experts coming in is more important than building models. Okay, I will have a small break for a small exercise. And I would like to ask you to fill out first, on the second slide in the deck you got. Please describe the decision situation you got, and describe what facts did you have. What were your goals? What were your decision rules? How did you make the decision? What was it? How was the execution? What were the results? And was the outcome good, yes or no? So, for example, you can evaluate the decision to join this webinar, or you can evaluate your decision not to go on holidays this year, or you can evaluate the reason why you started your educational program. But please try to list these things, and I'll be back to you in about 3 minutes. And you're much welcome to share your results in text in the chat. Okay, I don't see postings. It's a pity, but I can understand that, so no problem. But please use this format for your future work. Just to give you a small example to evaluate the decision on Corona. The decision situation is the coronavirus, how to treat it. What are the facts? Well, China was able to control it, that it looked like. What are the goals, for example, for Europe and America after that? Well, avoid a crisis. What were the decision rules? The decision rule was keep the economy going, but prevent people to be infected. Priority to either health or economy. How was the decision-making process? Well, it was based on perceptions or on experts. Most of the time, both America and Europe were using experts a lot. And Europe did have a strong lockdown. So they really said, okay, health first and economy can drop. In America, it seems to be that they have turned it around. They said, okay, a bit of a lockdown, but not that much because the economy is more important. So you see now that the result is that in the US, number of infections is a bit higher than in Europe. But we're not done yet, so the real conclusions still have to be made later on. Where did it go wrong? then in both cases, because both America and Europe, in fact, did make late decisions and had some problems. Maybe the framework was not well. We thought that, well, the problem is in China, maybe it's not our problem. We didn't really evaluate a lot of alternatives. It was either lockdown or not. Some information turned out to be not as reliable. And we thought, well, if you don't travel anymore, everything is closed. Maybe some values were not clear. Was economy more important than health? Maybe some reasoning was not clear. And maybe commitment to action was not clear. Some people said, okay, it's bad that there is Corona, but I will not stop my normal activities. Okay. So to finish this part, how to start a data science project, when perceptions or protocols are no solution, when data is available, when there is a strong need for structured decision making, and there's a lot of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Now, what type of projects can you come up to when you do data science? This is a very simple frame, but it's very important for your project. First of all, you have to make clear, is your goal clear, so what you want to reach, and is the solution clear? If both are clear, you can start right away on collecting data and making it happen. If your goal is not clear and the solution is not clear, you need to do a lot of other things before you can start collecting data. The same way of splitting data projects is the question, will you experience a lot of change during your project? That can be very different. And is there a lot of speed, yes or no? If there is a lot of change during your project and there's a lot of uncertainty, your project will be very complex. And if you look into Corona, it's a very complex item to tackle. If you have to plan to do 10 drop shipments of packages to your customers, there's not that much change. Maybe it will become 11. There's not that much uncertainty there, so you can keep it simple. What is also quite important for your project is, what is the scope of your project? Are you asked to describe the situation? Are you asked to predict the situation? Or are you asked to prescribe the situation? Descriptive is quite simple. What happened, how often, when, what is the problem? That's close to business intelligence. By the way, business intelligence doesn't use that much models, where data science most of the time involves models, using models, mathematical models. So if you describe the situation using a model, you do data science on the basic level. If you implement models to predict certain things, then you're in the predictive area, and that's already more difficult. Just explaining is one, but predicting is another. The most difficult one is if you not only predict something, but you also say, if this happens, you should do this, and if that happens, you should do that. And if you want to have the best outcome, you should have to do that in that situation. So let's be clear, to do prescriptive data science is very complex. My advice would be, if you don't have experience and your company doesn't have experience, start with the descriptive level, then the predictive level, and then the prescriptive level. Now the point is that you don't start data science out of nothing. You already have a kind of a problem-solving process. So it may be that in your company, you work a lot based on experiences. You do this because you have always done it like that. If you then introduce data science, you will make many people unhappy, because people feel put aside. When you have experts and you don't go to them to ask for the best solution, but you go to a system, an optimization system, quite some people feel frustrated and say, hey, what about my knowledge? So that's a tough one. But again, you can try to jump from the perception level to the optimization level. Another way to handle is that you already work with protocols, so people are used to work in a structured way. If this happened, then we all do this. If that happens, we all do that. If you already use a protocol, you can use data science to improve the protocol. And that you can do it temporarily. So you can say, okay, we will spend 1 month to improve the protocol, and then we will work along the new protocol. But we don't make new forecasts or manufacturing. What you also can do is, if you already are in the business intelligence area, you can say, okay, we will move onward to descriptive analytics, predictive and prescriptive. So it's very much up to the situation in your company, which jump you can make. And if you are really on the lowest level, working with experiences and not with protocols, it's really a hard job to jump up to the optimization. My advice will be, don't do it, or maybe do it on a very small scale. Or maybe do it in an area where you already have a bit of protocols or a bit of reports, and prove what you can do with optimization in that small area, and then try to move the other areas upward. So maybe first try to move perception-based decision-making to protocol-based decision-making, and agree on certain protocols, because then you also agree on certain insights. So what type of data science project you can start? Be aware of those different levels. Another well-known concept of scoping your project is to decide, are you going for horizon 1 type of projects with incremental innovations, well-known solutions, well-known markets? Are you going to horizon 2 levels, that's new to us and new to our customers, or even to level 3, which is new to the world and new to our customers? Of course, to do prescriptive modeling for horizon 3, it's a hell of a job. Most of the time you will start at level 1, then grow into level 2, horizon 2, and then go to horizon 3. In fact, what is happening with Corona, you could describe it as an horizon 3 level type of innovation, if you can call an illness an innovation, but at least we need the innovations to solve the issue. And that's for sure on level 3 for Corona. And another lesson learned from many projects is that you also should question, why do we start this project? What is the real issue? What is the problem? What is the opportunity? The first reason most of the time is because we have pain. There is something goes wrong, we can't handle it, we don't accept it, so we have pain, we want to solve it. And if you agree on the pain, then you can go for it. And then you say, well, let's solve it, whatever it takes. Another reason can be for pennies. That means you do it because you will earn money with it. And it is not really necessary, but because you have a return on investment of, well, let's say 20% or a payback period of less than 2 years. You say, hey, it's not really painful, but it brings us money, so let's solve it. The third reason to do a project is for prestige. All my colleagues are talking about data science, and I don't have a data science project. Well, let's create one. Well, as you will understand, of course, the best way to really start a data science project is when pain and pennies are involved, and because then you really know what the issue is. But to be honest, if you really need a budget, it's nice when there is some prestige involved too. So it's up to you to decide what you prefer. If you can do it in an area where there is a lot of prestige involved, that you want to show off to new employees or to customers that you are really working on data science, okay, benefit from that advantage, but be aware that after some time, prestigious projects will drop, and make sure that before that prestige is gone, you turn it into a pennies project so that there is a positive return on investment. Now, it's also important to know about the results of your project, and that's the level of entrepreneurship. With entrepreneurship, I mean, will your data science project bring a lot of money or by minor changes? Will it lead to a new product? Will it lead to a new process? Or will it even lead to a new business unit or new company? And there are some companies that, based on the data they have, that they start new ventures. Maybe you are aware of John Deere. And they deliver tractors, machines, but they also have a division now, which is collecting data from the usage of the machines to sell that the insights they get from it to people on how to raise crop. And that's, of course, a complete new business model. And sometimes you can use data science for complete new companies, like you see with Booking, Airbnb, Those are really startups based on data and data science, which compete with existing hotels, for example, and they do a great job by starting a new venture. So it's important for you to define, what is my ambition level? Am I going to make just a small change to an existing product, or will I even launch a new company? This is a bit close to the horizon 1, 2, and 3. And all those discussions about what data science project do we want to start is the maturity of your company. And there is what the well-known Delta model from Davenport, which is, okay, you should look into the data you have. How is the enterprise doing? How's the leadership? How are the targets? How are the analysts? Are they available? Yes or no? And you just should check, okay, am I on stage 1, stage 2, or stage 3 in my company? And based on the stage you're in, you have to start working. So maybe you have to start collecting some data. Maybe you have to bring certain data on an enterprise level. Maybe you have to educate your manager, your leaders. Maybe you have to make some targets clear. Maybe you need some extra analysts coming in to join. Just to show you a few examples of data science projects which evolved into a real new business. One is car sharing. The industry is traffic. They want to improve the uses of cars, not leaving it just having the car standing in front of the office. They want to optimize availability. They used descriptive and predictive analytics. Descriptive is what is going on with cars, and predictive, when do we expect that a new car or a temporary car will be used. And based on that, they come up with certain offerings, and they do offerings to certain customers. I'm not sure how they did it, with what type of project plan, maybe Chris DM, that we will cover that later on. They will have clustered users and usage situations. The outcome is that people have to change behavior. You have to shift from people using their own car to selling that car and using shared cars. And the overall conclusion is that there is a lot of change in behavior involved. An even more disruptive way of using data science was in the P4T project. We all know that there is water needed when there are many people around, but sometimes there is not enough water. But people always have to pee. So maybe you can make clean water from pee. And there is even an initiative for big concerts, festivals, to become sustainable, that on the concert area, they put down a few containers. The people go there to pee. The container starts working, and the output of the container is new, clear water to drink or make tea from, and fertilizer. Now, this may sound like very futuristic, but this is actually working. This is working in certain areas in Africa, but even in Western Europe, where the big concerts, the big festivals want to become sustainable. And when you leave the concert, you were invited to take some fertilizer with you home, which was created from the peeing people on the festival. So you see where what data science can bring. Okay, now we go to the third step, which is how to plan and run a data science project. It's always important to realize what role you're in. So are you the data scientist? Are you the entrepreneur? Maybe the data entrepreneur. The most favorite role to run a project is to be a data entrepreneur, because then you combine the business issues with the technical issues. You're the man in the middle, or the lady in the middle. Considering that you are the person in the middle, one of the best ways to plan a project is with the CRISP DM model. DM stands for data mining, and CRISP stands for cross-industry way of handling data mining. Well, the components of this way of working are quite clear. First, you have to understand the business understanding. Why is this issue that urgent that it should be solved? and why did it come up and who was involved. The other thing you can do is that based on the business understanding, you can start a data understanding. What data do I need to solve the issue? When you know what data you need, you can start collecting the data, or maybe preparing the data, elaborating on the data. You can start to make a model with the insights you're looking for. So then you use the clustering, the regression, the classification. And when you have tested the model enough, then you can do certain evaluation on real life problems. And then you can deploy. And with the deployment, you have to convince your colleagues that your model gives better advices than their experience. Now, of course, this is not a one-way route. You have a lot of iterations. You can start with business understanding, data preparation, and when you realize I did something wrong, you have to go back to business understanding. And when you do the modeling, it can be that you also have to go back to business understanding. Or even at the deployment side, you can be that you have to go back to business understanding. So there's a lot of iterations to go for. Okay, still no questions. You're very smart people. But okay, I will just go on. Now the QuizDM model has an explanation. You can find it online. If you just type in QuizDM, you find a lot of documents explaining the QuizDM model. You see that each step has a lot of activities to do. Go. Another way of handling the project is the team data science lifecycle, which was developed by Microsoft. Microsoft has based a lot of lecture material on this, and you see the link also, datascience.pm.com. And it has about the same structure as QuizDM, because it starts with business understanding, then you work on towards data acquisition and understanding, sourcing, pipelines, building an environment, wrangling, exploration, cleaning. After the data, you start with deployment and modeling. And when you have done that, you have the model store, the web services, the intelligence applications. Oh, sorry, I make a mistake here. Most of the time I work with QuizDM, but after the data acquisition, you do the modeling, and after the modeling, you do the deployment. And what is good shown in this model is that it is all about interaction. And when you do the business understanding, you can also do that during the modeling. You will do the acquisition, data acquisition, in cooperation with business understanding. You will have interaction between data acquisition and modeling. And during the deployment, you still can work on the data acquisition and still be working on the modeling. Okay, hopefully, based on the deployment, you can do customer acceptance and end the project. So these are two models, the QuizDM model and the TDSP model. Another way of picturing the models are in this way that, well, actually you see the steps that can be made, which is not new because it's also again about defining the problem, collecting the data, making the models, presenting, communicating, and doing the change. Now, what is nice about this picture is that somebody did do some research on this way of handling a project, and they also collected some data on where do things go wrong. And as you can see, the most things go wrong at the start and at the end. So it's most difficult to define and frame the problem in the right way and define a good solution approach. And it's most troublesome to turn an insight into action or change management. Of course, the most fun for data science people is in the technical part and to make everything work. But if you do all the work and nobody is using it, yeah, that's a big pity. So please pay attention to the start to the end and make sure that you have the right people to help you on the technical part. So what I really propose at the start and at the end really includes the decision making. How is the current decision making? Why did the issue come up? And at the end, how are you going to change the decision making? One solution for handling projects in the right way is to prevent that you work too much according to the J model. I will discuss with you two models. One is the J model and one is the U model. In the J model, you use a popular approach with data science, and that says, okay, when you have data or engineer data, then you do analysis, and based on the analysis, you come with insights, and you go up to your boss and you discuss how can we apply those insights. That's the way up. This is quite often done with people who are really into the data and think, well, I have a lot of data. There must be something in that data that will help our company. It's not wrong, because it can bring great insights, but it has a few risks. One of the risks is that you find something maybe which is not related to an issue. So you go up to your boss and say, well, I have found something. If we all start working at 6 o'clock in the morning, then we'll have great results, because the people that start at 6 o'clock in the morning have the best ratings towards customers. Okay, can we do that? Is that an issue? Yeah, so great insight, but nobody was waiting for that insight, and nobody is really going to do something with it. So you can have a lot of things, but there can be very valuable insights in there. So it's a bit of a gamble. If you do it already, data engineering based on some idea of a problem and about some person who can use the solution, then it can be successful. The better way to work is what I call the U model. That means that you start with decision making. So what is going on? Why is trouble coming up? Or why do we see an opportunity? Why didn't we see that before? What decision making was done in that period? Who was involved? Who was not involved? What data did they use? What models did they use? What insights did they use? Then you can say, okay, what can I add to that process based on data? For example, with the corona, what data can help to solve the whole corona crisis? Do we need maybe the temperature of all people? Do we need a score how people feel? Do we need how many people meet? Yeah, maybe you find out that people who meet more than 10 other people in a day are the most risky ones, and that all the people who meet less than 5 people in a day are safe. Okay, then you should start collecting that data. Okay, if you know where you can add value, then you can say I acquire the insights, and then I know what insights I need to solve the issue, and then I start collecting data. And then in fact you come into the J model, and then you do collecting, the cleaning, the data crunching. You discover the insights, maybe that those are the same as the required insights. You go up and you advise your manager about your insights found, and you try to implement that in the decision process. The advantage of the U way of working is that you involve your management and the decision makers already at the start. They really are aware of your projects, and they will join you in the ride, hopefully. And so that you say, okay, guys, what issue, what opportunity will we handle with decision making? With data science. And if you guide them along the way up to the right side, it's much more valid that they adopt your insights, because they were with you all the way. Okay. Yeah, what model is better for acceptance? Well, I would say the U model, but don't skip the J model fully, because sometimes it is indeed of value to start working from data upwards. And so it's not always the case that it's the U model, but I would say about 75% of the cases, the U model is better than the J model. Now, what technologies to use? I just used a slide from Ortec, one of the companies I work for. And there are a lot of technologies out there. I will not go into detail which ones to use when, but here you see a bit about which technologies are used in what phase. When is it business intelligence, when it is descriptive, that's the blue ones, which are for prescriptive, and which are for optimization or artificial intelligence. The same explanation is given in a very well paper, The Field Guide to Data Science of Buijsse, Allen and Hamilton. It's one of the few documents which really explains from management talk to mathematics what is going on. And for example, here they explain, well, when you describe something, you have to do some aggregation of data, and you can use these mathematical procedures for it. You can make scatter plots, you can make box plots, you can calculate the standard deviation, you can use the baseball card, and when you enrich, you can do annotation, you can use feature addition. So this is a very nice paper on combining the management talk and the mathematics. The hyperlink is at the bottom, so you can pick that link later on. Here I have summarized all the technologies which are in the Buijsse and Hamilton paper, and they are just asking how to develop and understand of data, how to clean, then you have a lot of cleaning actions, how to discover certain things, you can cluster and so on. Here are what are the likely future outcomes, so how can you predict, and forward, how can you prescript. Now, of course, the big challenges always are when you use certain material, avoid mistakes. One of the funny pictures I could find was about the average. Here it says at the border, average depth is 3 feet. Well, it's 1 feet at most places, but it's about 10 feet almost in one spot. And there you go. So you can't cross. While you thought you could cover with 3 feet, you cannot in reality. And that's for data exactly the same. Another mistake you can have is that when you are measuring or quantifying certain events, you always measure one piece of an event. And for example, if somebody is ill, you can measure his temperature, or you can take a look at his face, or you can measure his heartbeat. But it's always one piece of the total picture. And if you don't develop the total picture, you can be very, very wrong. As you see here, there's one person who's touching the ivory of the elephant and thinks, well, I have somebody in front of me who's going for a fight, so I should fight him. Well, fighting an elephant can be quite teasing. Somebody thinks, well, this is a very big, strong thing. It looks like a wall. Or somebody's feeling his feet and says, well, this is a tree. So this is really a very explanatory picture about things that can go wrong when you collect data. So how to start? The bottom up or top down? I would say both. Think big and start small. And one of the best ways to handle a project is go out and team up. Talk to people about your project and try to get people on board as soon as possible. Just to show you some mistakes that can be made, I have 2 cases where things went terribly wrong. And so I'm not well. I know that we all learn most of things that go wrong. So I would like to share 2 of those stories with you. The case was about fruit. The question was, what amount of crop protection is needed to have the best fruit available? And why data science? Well, because they measured a lot. They measured the soil, the weather, the type of apple, the day when they used the crop protection, the quality of the apple. They had about 20 features collected over 3 years. So they started with a descriptive project. Let's try to find out what's going on. So the QuizDM model was started, business understanding, everything else, and they tried to find a regression. If the soil is darker, does it deliver better apples? If there is more crop protection, are the apples better? When the weather is better, are the apples better? And which connections are there? Now, what went wrong was the fact that the apples that were collected were just the apples that were approved by the farmer. So in reality, the spread of apple quality was quite thin. Almost all the apples were good. So if somebody used a lot of crop protection and the apples were good, But if somebody didn't use crop protection, also the apples were good. Because what happens in the field, that when the apples were not good, the farmer didn't bring them to the cooperation. So that was really, yeah, a big mistake. That we were blinded by the enormous amount of data available, but we forgot that the framing was wrong. We should have measured already from the start of the growing of the apples, how many apples were dropped from the trees because they looked bad, and how many apples were not picked because they looked bad. And maybe how many apples were taken out by the farmer before sending them to the trading station. So it's really important to be sure that you have the complete scope. Another case that went wrong was in retail, was a book sales chain. How to increase sales by adding teasers. They had all the data from the cashier, which told which books were sold on what day in what shop. So, and they tried to make a prediction out of all those figures. However, so they did a kind of a clustering of those books were sold there under these circumstances. However, the shop did not write down, was it a woman or a man? Was it a young person or an old person? Was the book sold for a birthday present or for study? Did the person buy one book or 5 books? And what other items were made in the same deal? So to increase sales by adding teasers for the book sales, it was almost impossible because there was almost nothing known about the book's sales next to the fact that the book was sold. So the lesson learned was first collect a lot of data on behavior before you can do anything else with the data. So the data in this case was too flat. Okay. Now I'm going to the third piece of the presentation. That's what about the changes that are needed to when as outcome, and how can you secure impact? Well, we already discussed that a project can have small or large consequences, can be incremental or disruptive. We already have discussed that you can have a low ambition or a high ambition. So what I'm going to do now is that if you do a data science project, the impact can be different based on the number of people that are involved. This is maybe a difficult graph, but I will just explain it briefly. When you make decisions, you need a certain decision capacity. Now, the capacity for decision making can come from the decision maker. That's one person. That person can spend a lot of time on a decision or little time. Now, when the decision maker doesn't have enough capacity to make the decision or prepare the decision, he can ask an expert to join. So in this case, the decision maker has thought about it briefly and then says, okay, I need an expert, a very good expert. The expert then can also involve other people, a group, employees or other people. And they can involve some kind of a data system. In this case, the decision is really driven by the expert, a bit by the rest. Now, our ideal situation with data science is that the data systems capacity is being used most. So in this case, we hope that, for example, the decision maker is still having a small thought, then goes to the data science solution, and maybe involves a few employees to think, but he doesn't need the expert anymore. And that in working in this way, he will have the same capacity available, or even more, by implementing a data system. So the change most often needed is to diminish the influence of a decision maker, of a group or an expert, and increase the influence of a data system. So how to secure the impact? Well, be aware that when people get data which are not in line with their insights, about 90% of the people will say, I will collect more information, or I will start reanalyzing. So 10% says, okay, I will accept the data which is not in line with my insights, but 90% says, no, I don't trust it. And others say, for example, that most of them rely on empirical data, a bit on data-driven, most people rely on working together with other people. So first of all, data science is not the most preferred way of working. And second, the outcome of data science is quite often put aside. Now, how can you prevent that? To prevent that, there is a nice concept developed by Chris Akeris. It's called the ladder of inference. When you have data collected, you must be aware of the fact that, first of all, you make a selection of the data you see. That's what you do. That is what your colleagues do. Because you can't see everything. When you have selected data, then you will interpret it. You will combine it with your assumptions. You will come to a certain conclusion, to a certain belief, and then you will do something. Now, the point is, when new data is coming in, or new insights, they have to go up in the whole ladder to actions. And the new insights have to fight with previous observations, previous interpretations, previous assumptions, previous conclusions, previous beliefs, and previous actions. So you better make sure that your data and your insights are very well founded and very strong, to make sure that people are willing to change their behavior, change their interpretations, change their assumptions, change their conclusions, and change their beliefs and even actions. So it's a long battle to go up. And I can assure you that a lot of data, even when it is connected with data science, never reaches the states of conclusions or assumptions, because the already embedded conclusions and assumptions in the mind of people is that strong that people don't change to the data-driven interpretations. There is a nice video on this. I will not show the video, but I really would like to advise it to you. The link to this I will add in the slides. And it really shows very nicely what happens when people go on the ladder of inference. That people really have a certain attitude to focus on data that they already have seen before, that they select data that confirms their beliefs, that they come to conclusions which are close to their own interests, and that they make actions that are close to their own experience, own beliefs. And if your insight from data science is competing with their own observations, own assumptions, own conclusions, own beliefs, you have a heck of a job to go. Now, another way to make sure that your insights are accepted is by adding this to a well-known decision-making graph structure. Because if you want to change decision-making, you have to influence the recognition of the issue, the diagnosis, the design for certain solutions, the judgment, and then the selection and the authorization. Now, all these steps can be done by different people and different levels. For example, the recognition of an issue can be done by a decision owner. It can also be that the system is recognizing the issue, an alarm. And for example, when there's a red light in your car, which says, well, you don't have any fuel anymore, then the recognition is done by a system. But if you're on a bike and you see you have a flat tire, most of the time you as a biker will see that there is something wrong. And the next step of diagnosis can be done by an expert or by a data system. Then the next step to design the different alternatives can be done by an expert, by a decision owner, or by a group. The selection of alternatives can be done by a decision owner, by an expert, or by a system. And then the authorization, the go, no go for the selection, and the execution can also be done by different. Now, traditional way of making decisions is that everything is done on the decision owner's level. This is a very classic way. The decision owner is seeing the problem, diagnosing the problem, is thinking about the alternatives, is doing the selection, says, okay, this is what we will do, and I will execute it. The ultimate solution for a data scientist is that the system is making the recognition, the system is doing the diagnosis, the system is thinking about alternatives. The system is making selection of the best alternative. The system is authorizing the choice and is executing it. This top level is what we call artificial intelligence. This is what we call classical hierarchical decision making. Now, if you implement data science solutions, most of the time you will make certain moves. You will upgrade, for example, recognition from the data decision owner to a system. You will upgrade the expert diagnosis to a system diagnosis. You will upgrade the design alternatives from a decision owner or an expert or a group to a system. Maybe the selection can still be done by a decision owner or to an expert or a system also. The authorization can be upgraded or the execution. It's quite important to realize what are you changing? What is needed to change to make your outcome really successful? Yes, to make sure that your insight is adapted. And the more changes in levels you have to make, the more challenges you have to adopt. Okay, I have already let's say challenged you for almost 1.5 hours. So I would prefer to come to an end and then maybe leave some time for questions. I will cover 2 other cases just to show which type of projects you can run into and how you can start them, run them, and make the implementation successful. One example is dynamic routing. It's a case of a beverage company, so it's doing a lot of transportation, and they were doing their distribution based on static routes. They just said, well, on Monday this truck is driving from customer A to B to C to D. On Tuesday he is driving from customer H to J to M and OP. And on Wednesday he's driving to X, Y, Z. Now you can imagine that when the orders are different on those days, one time the truck is completely full, the other time it's almost empty, and the third time the truck can't handle all the orders. So what is better is to make it into dynamic routes. Now, of course, this will use a lot of calculations. So why data science is used? Because it can't be handled by discussions anymore, by standard protocols, by standard ways of thinking, by best practices. You really need a model based on data science, based on best practices in the past. So the model is being built. It's a prescriptive model. It says, okay, if these are the orders, then we advise to go with this truck on that route. The system solution was developed in the classic waterfall method, which means specifying the system, developing the system, implementing the system. The techniques used was classification, because and also optimization, because it was handled like if we have these type of orders, we will classify them for that type of truck. These type of orders we classify them for that truck. For example, if we have pallets, we can deliver, then we have a pallet route. If we have cases, then we have a case route. And if we, well, maybe there are some other things to do, but let's stick to the case route where we deliver cases and where we deliver pallets. And then actually this was a big calculation issue. So the models built, data science models, were especially focused on making sure that the calculations were done in time. Because when you have to do routings for, let's say, 1,000 stops a day, you have billions of options to do that. The impact on decision making was huge, because all the people had to change from standard protocols to fully dynamic situations. So the planner had really to rely on the system to check the routes. The planner was more a process controller and not a process maker anymore. The planner was reviewing the orders and reviewing the routes that came out of it. That's completely different from building the routes themselves or just looking into the static routes. The nice thing of this very advanced data science project was that there were huge savings, but change management needed for it involved really a lot of people, the drivers, the planners, and the customers. So what looked like a real full mathematical data science project was in fact a big change management project. Another more simple project was a city government project where the city government wanted to make better local policies, and they lacked insights in the relationship between jobless people, level of income, issues with theft, rioting, and that kind of stuff, because that was all split in different departments. So the question was, can we bring this all together, and can we see if we know measures that work in a certain area that also might work in another area? So what they did is they collected all the data and they classified the certain neighborhoods into certain classes. So if there was a lot of noise late in the street, or when there was a lot of rioting, or there was a lot of jobless people, they tried to see, okay, what can we learn from other areas to implement in those problem areas. So in this case, it was quite a simple data science project. It was combining data and it was combining solutions. And because if you know that you have an area where there is maybe a low income, but most people work, and there is an area where you have low income, but nobody works, then maybe you can make a comparison and see what's going on. So what they did was more and better decision making, and they really improved the tailor-made working of their policies. And they did not rely on their old mindsets or what they thought was good or wrong, but they really relied on the data. Okay, now to finalize this webinar, I would like to finish with a few teaching advices. When you are learning in data science, of course, you can do just as you do today. You listen, and maybe you will be able to repeat a few things. What you also can do is listen and really repeat things by talking to your colleagues. So a good thing is when you try to explain to your colleagues, one of your colleagues, what you learned today, because then you will not forget. Of course, a better way is to apply it with the practices I shared with you and apply it in the areas which I described. Even better would be if you apply them to new areas, or that you add something to this concept, or that you even come with new concepts. So talking about this, applying it is the only way to learn. And my way of saying is that teaching is the best way to learn. So please try to find some students and try to explain them what you learned today. That's also the really valuable foundation of our JADS program. It's not to invite you to the program. Of course, if you want to join, you're most welcome. Please visit the JADS website, jads.nl. But what we have done is that next to the teacher program participant relationship, we introduced sponsors, which are managers who join the program participant in their trip, in their U model. We also, of course, combine participants in a group so that they can learn from their colleagues. We also bring the participant in touch with open source community so that they can pick a lot of knowledge there. And we put them in what we call graduation team with a practitioner. What we recently have added is what we call online hackathons, so that we just take a problem, take a data set, and in one evening, with the use of Zoom, we solve a project. It's really working very fine. So everybody who is in this webinar can invite his colleagues to do this type of learning. Okay, so to summarize, please take into the consideration that you need a right reason to start using data science. So is data science the best way compared to other options to solve an issue or exploit an opportunity? Or is it maybe to discuss or use an expert or whatever? So please use it in a selective way. It's not a solution for everything. If you will implement data science, please use it with a good structure. So use the CRISDM model and the U model, or maybe the Microsoft model, but please use a model. Make sure that you work in a structured way. And finally, if you want to make sure that your insights are really used, include decision making in your whole process from start to finish. So start with thinking, whose decisions would I like to change? And in the end, who should really implement my insights in his or her decision making? Okay, that's a lot for an afternoon. Is there someone who wants to share his thoughts, ask questions? I see that Hassan is there, Miriam is there. Anybody wants to speak up? Juan, Yad, John, Michael, Antonio, Jose? No?
Yes, I'd like to ask a question.
Yes,
But
please.
is my voice clear or is it a bit off?
Yes, I can understand you. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask now. I have some insight in data science, and I've done a few data science exercises using
Yes.
a data set. But what I'm trying to do is I want to see how I can integrate decision making with educational projects that are how do we call it that are related to vocational training. So a good portion of what I'm trying to do is with NGOs is I'm trying to teach um, people skills in agriculture or some industrial skills for the job market. Now, here's the thing that when you want to create such projects, usually if it's something like out of the box or something that's new in a certain geographical or demographic location, you get donors and you get support for such projects. The idea that you would back this up with data science or with hard statistics is not that common, although I do believe it's necessary. So where I would be able to start with something like that, I'm still not sure. Even after the and I would like to thank you for this amazing session, and it really enlightened me to a lot of ideas. But even now, the case studies that you provided were a bit more business oriented, or perhaps um, city management oriented. How can I how can I present data when it's something related directly to people, or it's something that isn't really quantitative in nature, even if you have small groups of 10 to 15 people? How can you use data science to measure things like that?
Okay. Well, a very clear question, and indeed very common that you don't have the data yet, and you have to make people aware of what you can do. Just to give you a small thought, what is done a lot in education is that you try to rank people or people on who they are, what they want to learn, how they are behaving. And that you first of all you want to quantify the profile of a person. So if you work with people, for example, you want to educate them on doing something new, that you just give them a form and say, okay, who are you? What is driving you? What is your ultimate challenge? And what do you think will work? And then you do it in a quantified way. And so who you are is of course age and education, but you have to quantify it all in figures. And so it's not open, it's very close. So if you, for example, educational level, you can say you go from 0 to 10. 0 is I cannot read or write. To 10 is I did a university. And the second thing is that, for example, your ambition is I want to just to learn from myself, or I want to learn from my family, or I want to change the world. And that you all do the rating on from 0 to 10. And that you collect in that way all types of profiles. And that, for example, you also include the main insight which is needed for your project. For example, if you say, I want to work with people to increase education in our village, then you assume that with certain education, you will have better income. Well, maybe just put down that insight and try to collect data on that. Is it always the case that you need education to have a better income? And if that is valid in 60% of the cases, you have quite valuable insight, but you also make people aware that there are also other ways to have a better income. And then you have to say, is education the goal or is it the mean? In the end, of course, you start education to have better income. So the goal is not education, the goal is to have better income. And then you can change the model. And then you can say, okay, let's measure all the things that lead to a better income. So in such a way, by collecting the knowledge of the people and by rating it almost everything from 0 to 10 and putting it in a spreadsheet and then trying to find certain insights and sharing that, then already you start introducing the value of figures. And it's also very valuable to ask people upfront, what do you think that the other people will rate on this? And what do you rate yourself? Because then you will learn that certain assumptions people have on other people are quite wrong. And for example, when I see somebody of 50 years old, I have the assumption that, wow, he is here in this class just to listen a bit, but he has no ambitions anymore. While in reality, it can be that somebody of 50 years old has more ambitions than somebody of 20. So my advice would be, define a few simple forms, ask people to fill them out, and keep working with forms and keep building up a data set during your project to learn from it. Does it bring value?
Yes, a lot. Thank you very much for your insight.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Just to give you a bit of an inspiration, in our program, we work with professionals, and professionals are aged between 30 and 50. I made a check on their programming skills at the start. Well, of course, people that are young and come from university, they have some programming skills. And I had some people from 50 with very limited programming skills. Now, we started to measure how much time they spent on DataCamp, which is an online facility, to see who was working the hardest on this. It turned out to be that the older people, they were that much on DataCamp that in the end, they were better programmers than the younger people, which was totally unexpected on our side. And so later on, we accepted more older people in our program. And then the funny thing was that those older people turned out to be also more ambitious than the younger people. The older people were there, they said, well, I want to make a final step in my career, so I go for it the whole way. While the younger people just said, well, I want to increase my career chances. So it's really challenging to measure on quite simple things. And I can assure you, you will be surprised what you find when you measure these things. Yeah? So you can do it in a simple way. Start it. Yeah?
Very
Thanks.
nice.
Thanks so much for this, for your question. Somebody else? Not for the moment?
I'd like to ask a question.
Yes, please.
Also, actually, it's a recommendation. I'm new data science. So my question is, I'm interested in learning from both sides. I mean, from the business side, but also from the technological side. I mean, from the engineering parts, the programming,
yeah,
and modeling, and all this field. So what will be your recommendation in order for the better learning path for me? I mean, will be the best starting from the programming side and maybe going next up for the modeling and then for the business cases, or what would you recommend?
Well, what is your background at the moment? What did you
I'm
study?
an engineer. I'm an engineer, electronic engineer, and I have a master's degree in IT administration, IT management.
Okay. And what is your preferred profile? Yeah, you say I want to learn from both business and technology. Do you want to become a data entrepreneur? Do you want to become a full-time data scientist? Or do you just want to become
maybe an entrepreneur, but also I will actually ideally I would like to learn about the both sides. I would like to have knowledge about all the scope, the full scope.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, of course, you need some basics. So you need a kind of a discovery course. When I meet people who are quite fresh, but they have a good background, I would say start something like Data Camp. Data Camp has a lot of lectures on different things, and it includes a bit of programming, but with your background, you already have done some programming. And then the next step could be that you go to Kaggle just to do some competitions in programming and solving issues. And the other route you can do, if based on the small things you have learned from Data Camp, that you just ask people around you if they have some issue that they would like to quantify and put into a kind of a model. By just solving small issues from people around you, maybe in your job or whatever, and just start working. And there is so much online available, it's really enormous. It's not that you need to program a lot, because even the code you can copy from online. So I would say I start with the basics in Data Camp, learn a bit about Python, learn a bit about working with Jupyter notebooks, for example. Jupyter notebook is an environment where you can put your thoughts, your data, your models in one environment. And when you have the skills with a bit of programming in Python and working a bit with Jupyter notebooks, I would just say go out and challenge yourself with working with people. And maybe you can do it already with some data you have on your own. For example, you can download all your data on your Google Maps that you in Google Maps, Google keeps track of you, maybe, if you allow that. If you download all that data, you start to analyze. Then on which days do I travel the most, and when is the traffic most slow, and that kind of stuff. So try to find your own small challenges, and then try to do it in your job. And I really would advise to do it not on your own, but do it with a few people. It's much more motivating. It will make the learning much faster, and it will allow you to learn by teaching.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay. Somebody else.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, sure.
I'm a computer science student, and I'm just starting out with data science. So I've been learning Python, and I've been I've been learning about machine learning and data science, and some of the things that you've mentioned, like classification and regression and clustering. But I'm wondering, like how can I take the next step into going into the field? I've been told that I need to start with projects, but I've been having a hard time figuring out what kind of project I want to do and how can I collect the data for it. I was wondering if I could ask you about that.
Yeah. And what is your background at the moment?
Computer science, but I know Python, and I've been working with the data science.
Okay, but you're still a student now.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Well, as mentioned before to Jan, try to find maybe a kind of a hobby project for yourself. If you have a hobby like biking, or have a hobby of soccer, or a hobby of gambling, maybe even, and try to do something in that area to find new insights and to change your own decision making. Because if you want to advise people to behave different and make better decisions, why not use yourself as a kind of a pilot? For example, that you travel between your home and your school, and that you take different routes, and that you start to collect the data. How much time do I take for this travel, for that one, and on different days of the week? And that on that way you start to collect data. That's one way. The other way is, as mentioned before, try to find some other people who like to make it into a kind of a game. Analyze the soccer results, analyze the gambling on horses, and try to beat the system. You can do it on the stock exchange, for example. That you take the data from the stock exchange of a few shares, and you just start finding analogies between the of course the big five, the Facebook and Google and Apple shares and the gold price, and maybe try to find some regression lines in that, and then just try to find some insights and see if you can change your behavior. There are also a few people online that do these types of projects all the time. We have one teacher, his name is Longhao Lam. He has also a blog and a LinkedIn profile. And if you look into his stories, you will find a lot of funny things, like the prices of houses, the developments in the Corona crisis. He's doing it for fun, those analysis. Another name I can refer to is John Popelaar. I will add those names in the slides, by the way. He has also a blog. It's called OR at Work, and he is a member of Informs. Informs.org is a place where the real data science professionals are coming together and share a lot of experiences. So yeah, so first of all, try to do it for yourself. Second, try to do it with a small group of people. Then try to do it online or learn from other people. And then of course, try to do it for a company or an uncle or a neighbor or your whoever. Just start doing it, if possible, together with a few people. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome.
Ronald, okay. I have my own question. So,
okay. Yeah, welcome.
How much is it easy, like, to practice by your own project? Because, like, when you have projects from companies, you already know what's the business behind it and what's the problem. But if I am doing my own projects for practice, I don't know, like, really what's the problem behind it and what's the business also.
Yeah, but for that thing, you should do something which is in your interest. For example, if you say, I want to make a career, and you don't know what is the next best step, why not start collecting job offerings and salaries and put them in a database? And try to find out if in insurance or in banking, they pay more for a data scientist than for a data science in agriculture. And maybe add a column to it, which ranks your interest. Because maybe a nice job in agriculture is for you more fun than having a high salary in insurance. And so try to find the thing which is important for your own future. It can be finding new job openings. It can be finding a house. Yeah, it can even be finding a new holiday destination. I don't know. So challenge yourself with something that is really of interest to you.
Yeah, I get you. We have many challenges in this life.
Yeah.
So we can work on it.
Yeah. And really, if you, for example, if you are getting into trouble with data, look into open data. There is so much open data from cities, from countries. If you look into the World Bank, or if you look into the Sustainable Development Goals, there are so many huge data sets which you can use for your own benefit. If you just type in open data in agriculture, open data in career development, open data in whatever, in having healthy food, for example. There is really so much data open there, out there. It's really fun to discover that. And if you, of course, you can combine open data with your own data, then you're really out there. Because if you ask me what is the big challenge for data science in the future for companies, it is combining the internal data with external open data. So it's combining your own insights from your company with public insights.
Yeah, I get you. Thank you.
Yeah?
Yep.
Okay. So, are you going to collect some data on the satisfaction rate of this webinar? Because then we also have a small data set.
It depends if I get feedbacks.
Okay. So please, all participants, if you want to contribute to data science and making it better, please fill out the questionnaire which Vedat is sharing with you later on. And we will share with you the slides, and I will add some hyperlinks and some names to it so that you can do some further research. Yeah? So I think maybe it's a good time to close. We are exactly on time, Vedat. It's exactly 6 o'clock.
Yes.
So let's make this a great way to end. We predicted that we would stop at 6 o'clock and we made it. So it seems to be that we have a good model with that.
Yeah, good prediction model of time.
Exactly. That's why you added your own question, of course, to make sure that we would end at 6 o'clock exactly.
No, I was curious.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot to everyone for joining this webinar. We will share with you the slides, and maybe when you have further questions, you can use my email address, ronald@buijsse.com, and I will try to get back to you with an answer. Thank you.
Sure, you're welcome.
Thank you.